How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today I've compiled a list of the 10 most common questions people ask before they move to Denver, Colorado, and you and we're going to talk about them starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everetson. Listen, if you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to moving to or around Denver, Colorado, then this is a channel for you. So make sure to click on that subscribe button as well as the notification icon as I'm dropping new videos for you each and every week. And listen, as much as I love to pretend that I'm being entertaining here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of Denver's most talented realtors. So the number and email popping up on your screen, know that I'm always the person answering your phone calls, answering your texts, answering your emails, there when and if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is a conversation about the 10 most common questions people ask before making the move to Denver, Colorado. All right, so to compile this list, did some research online, asked some clients, asked some friends, and really started to think about, we know the obvious ones, and certainly some of the 10 are gonna be no duh moments. But what are the questions that we really drill down to as we get ready to make a move? And the first one is pretty obvious and very common, and that is, what is the cost of living like in Denver? Now, I can throw all the stats at you. I can talk to you about how the cost of living average is higher than the national average. The cost of housing average is higher than the national average. But when it comes to cost of living, the bottom line is it is going to depend likely on where you are coming from. When I have conversations with people moving here from the Midwest, from the South, from certain parts of Texas, New Mexico, it is routine that if they are making the move here, they have to get ready for a cost of living increase. They're gonna pay more for rent. They're probably gonna pay more for groceries. They're gonna pay more for entertainment and things of that sort. Whereas when I talk to people moving from parts of California, Los Angeles, San Jose, San Francisco, when I talk to people moving from Seattle, Washington, D.C., Miami, parts of Texas, there are these areas where moving to Denver, New York, can't forget about New York, there's gonna be parts of the country where moving to Denver is an affordability change. Perfect example today, I talked to somebody coming from San Francisco where the house they can buy out here is half the price, and the amount of money they will spend just on entertaining, going out, things like that, also cut in half. So cost of living is going to be specific to where you are coming from. Is it cheap to live in Denver overall? Again, not by national average. And if you talk to people who grew up here or who have lived in Denver for a while, they're gonna tell you, rightfully so, that Denver's cost of living continues to increase. Number two, what does Denver's job market look like? So overall, with the exception of that period of time around 2007, 2008, Denver's economy has steadily grown. Even during COVID and now the couple years after. We have seen some industries slow down a bit. There was a point oil and gas is still a major player in this city, but we saw a point where they kind of hit their peak around 2013, 2014, going into 15 is when that industry hit their peak. Still a lot of oil and gas jobs here. Other industries though, tech, financial, education, healthcare, there's a lot of different players in Denver. So when you talk about the job market here, it's very diverse, and it's not just based in Denver. You get down into Greenwood Village, south of Denver. You get up into Broomfield, which is northwest of Denver, and then you get up into Boulder, where companies like a huge Google headquarters are. So there are a lot of jobs in and around that Denver metro area. And because of that financial and economic stability, you have, again, a lot of diversification. We're not reliant on that one industry to carry us. So if there is a downturn based on one industry, you don't see the entire city get punished for it. Question number three, and it's loaded, we could be here all day, but people talked about what are the best neighborhoods to live in Denver. And so I think as we address that question and we talk to clients and communities about that, friends, is what type of community fits the bill for you. If you are the city person, the person that wants to spend a lot of time in Denver, if you like going to sporting events and concerts and you like going out to dinner in the city, getting to the theater, things of that nature. If you're not in Denver, if you're not in neighborhoods like Rhino or Five Points as we would call it, if you're not in Lodo, then you might be just on the outskirts. You might be in a neighborhood like the Highlands. You might be in Sloan's Lake. You might be in Park Hill. You might be in downtown or right around that in areas like Cap Hill and Uptown. So when we talk about communities, again, if you're a city person, those are some of my favorites. And again, to list them quickly, Rhino, Lodo, Cap Hill, Uptown, Highlands, Sloan's Lake, and Park Hill. And me, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you've seen me talk about Highlands and Sloan's Lake. Those are two of my favorite neighborhoods in all of Denver. They're located on the west side of town. And what I like about them the most is the fact that they are urban and suburban. They're just across I-25 from downtown, so you get a feel of both. You're close enough to the city to get there. There's a ton of walkability, ton of great neighborhoods, but at the same time, you start to get that suburb feel. And that's a great part about Denver. Denver is one of those cities where pretty much as soon as you get outside of the city itself, it starts to feel suburb while still having the city vibe at the same time. So a lot of these communities, you're going to get that. You don't have to drive, like when I lived in New York, you have to drive a good 20, 30, 40 minutes to feel like you're in the burbs. If that's your energy, that's where you want to be. Denver, give it 10 minutes and you're there. And again, I told you I could talk about this all day, but I don't want to. If you're looking for mountain towns, you're going to be west of Denver. You're going to be Littleton, Lakewood, Arvada, Golden. You can't go wrong. Maybe you are stationed at one of the military bases like Buckley on the east side of town, and you're going to look through Aurora. Aurora being this big town and a lot of different regions where you can live in. And if we're talking north or south of town, my personal favorites, take a look at Broomfield. Take a look at Lafayette, all north. Lafayette, Broomfield, Louisville, and south, Greenwood Village, Centennial, Highlands Ranch, and Parker. You could basically name off all of them. I'm missing a bunch, but we can't be here 20 minutes talking about number 3, right? So number 4, what is the weather like? And I know every single time, if you Google, if you watch a video, people are going to tell you 300 days of sunshine. They're going to tell you it gets cold, but not too cold. They're going to tell you it's dry. They're going to tell you all these things. Overall, Denver has a very mild climate. When people tell you it's dry, that helps us on both sides. When it's summertime and the weather gets into the 90s, which it does often, it's not that sticky, icky, hot. It is dry, you're still sweaty, but you don't have that constant film like you feel in Florida, East Coast, high humid areas. At the same time, wintertime, now listen, we are about to end a winter that has been as bad as any as I can remember. A lot of snow, a lot of freezing days. But what we'll always tell you is as the snow hits, we usually get a nice blast of sun, and within a couple days that snow is melted. That was not necessarily what happened this winter, but for the most part it is. I would say one thing about Denver and its weather is that we get some rain from time to time. In the summertime, you'll have a few days here and there where it's just gray and a lot of rain, but we don't get a lot of water here. Obviously, we've talked about that before. It's a dry climate, not a lot of water, but there is periods of time where we go through droughts. There's periods of time where the city and these counties around Denver have to conserve water. This winter really helped a lot, but that's still something to keep in mind. Number 5, what is the average commute time? Now, obviously this depends on where you live, but if you look at different cities, and there's different websites that will give you average commute times. Somehow they came up with the average commute time in Denver was 24.3 minutes. I have no idea where they get that, but let's talk about it based on some of these neighborhoods we've talked about. So as an example, and we're gonna talk about not quite rush hour, but not exactly no traffic either. So if you look at a Google map right now and you look at a town like Lakewood where I live, from Lakewood to downtown, you can be there in 20 to 30 minutes to park, depending on what part of Lakewood you're coming from. If you look farther west on your map at Golden, Golden's gonna be, depending on where you're coming in Golden, 30 to 35 minutes to get downtown as a frame of reference. Broomfield, again, look northwest on your map, roughly 35 to 40 minutes of a drive to get downtown, but also only about 30 to 35 minutes from the airport. So sneaky convenient to get to the airport. If you're on the east side of town, pretty much the farthest you're gonna be from downtown is in the Southlands, which is the southeast corner of Aurora. And again, you're gonna hear this is kind of reoccurring about that 35 to 40 to maybe 45-minute drive to downtown, depending on traffic. Although today I made it in 24 minutes on a Saturday. Parker, a great neighborhood, great suburb. If you're looking at that, southeast of Denver, that could be about a 45-minute drive if there's decent traffic. So these commute times, very challenging. Is Denver the type of place where everything is centrally located? Not so much. There are going to be a lot of people who work downtown. There's also going to be people who work in the Denver Tech Center, Greenwood Village, which is straight south on I-25. There's going to be people who work up in the Interlochen section of Broomfield, which is, if you look up I-25 coming out of Denver and over on Route 36, going to be up that way. So, and into Boulder, I should say. There's a lot of companies up in Boulder, as I mentioned earlier. So that commute time, really hard to say. But when we talk about traffic in Denver, one thing I will stress, Denver is not like traffic you see in major cities like LA, New York, Chicago. The traffic here is slower. It's annoying because we have a lot of people who do not know how to drive, but very rarely are you truly just stopped in traffic. The one exception being I-70 coming east after a long weekend in the mountains, but we're not discussing that here. And to tie on to that question, another one was, how is public transportation in Denver? Well, bus system, not bad. It's funny, I used to knock the bus system, but I've talked to enough people and I have family that relies on it quite a bit, and they say overall it's a good experience and a lot of different routes and a lot of buses running. Also, we have our light rail system, and again, this is really dependent on where someone lives. But my clients, friends, colleagues, the people who live near one of the light rail systems rave about it. They love using the system. It's very convenient, helps them get all over the place. There's communities like Littleton, as an example, has 3 separate stops. Arvada has 3 separate stops. So depending on where you live, the issue with light rail in Denver is that right now and for the foreseeable future, it's limited on how many routes there are. So the light rail system is not a place where a massive amount of people can rely on it the same way that they might in, say, a city like New York. The 6th most common question people ask are, what are the best schools? And listen, I would always encourage you to do your research on that. Look at bestschools.com, look at niche.com. You're gonna see different ratings for different places. And the fact is, whether you're looking at private or public schools, what have you, elementary, middle school, high school, colleges, there's a lot of information to help you make that choice. And some are consistently going to be talked about. Cherry Creek School District has for as long as I can remember, been one of those school districts that people talk about. When we talk about the town of Aurora, part of the reason that Aurora can be so popular, parts of it, is because they are in that school district, Cherry Creek School District. But there are pockets of Jefferson County, Douglas, Boulder Valley, all very high ranking. So when it comes to school districts and being such an important question for people, I would always do your due diligence there. Again, niche.com, bestschools.com, great resources for that. And I'm gonna stress this each and every time to potential home buyers. Even if schools do not matter to you specifically, if you don't have kids or you're not worried about kids going to school or you're gonna send your kids somewhere else to school, whatever the case may be, always remember, if you're buying a home, you might not be worried about that school district, but the person potentially buying your house in the future might be. So always keep an eye on that. Number 7 actually ties into number 1, and that is, how hard is it to find affordable housing in Denver? And this, again, ties into that cost of living and where you're coming from, but I'm a firm believer in this. If what you are willing to pay matches what you are wanting out of a place to live, that is going to put you in the best position to succeed. Certainly, whether it comes to renting or it comes to buying, see, I'm helping more people on that buying side of things, but when it comes to renting or buying, I have people who set a healthy budget for themselves. I'll have a lot of people who will call me and they'll say, Jimmy, I would like to keep my rent around $1,200 for a 2-bedroom. It's going to be challenging when it comes to areas that you might be looking at. Not to say that you need to extend yourself to 3,000 or 4,000, but same thing on the home purchase. People who will set a purchase price that in this current market just isn't hitting that mark. So when it comes to setting that plan and getting ready for the move, it's really about doing that research and making sure whether you are buying or renting that you have a monthly budget established based on research of areas that you might like to really know what you would be able to, again, buy or rent. And with affordability when it comes to housing comes two of the biggest questions that we certainly get along the way. And that is number 8, what is the crime situation here in Denver? Now, just full transparency, there are certain things that we can and cannot say from a legality standpoint when it comes to anything related to real estate. But I'm one to make sure that you have a resource. Now, I'm going to give you some facts and then I'm going to give you some opinion. The facts, Denver has seen an increase in property crime over the last several years. In fact, depending on what you see, we are ranking very high. It's kind of sad to say it, but higher nationally when it comes to car crimes. That's a big deal here right now. Car break-ins, car thefts. I will tell you each and every time, I haven't had anybody impacted. I don't know anybody who has been impacted yet, but it's probably only a matter of time. Our stats and our trends when it comes to car thefts and property crime are not necessarily trending in a good direction. Gave you the facts, here's my opinion. I've lived in a lot of different places. I've been all over the country and in many ways all over the world back in my military days. To me, within reason, Denver is one of those cities where you can tell pretty quickly areas that you might want to live in and areas that you might want to do a bit more research in. I've lived in places like areas of New York where trouble found you. Areas of the East Coast where you just weren't going to avoid something wrong happening, whether it was to you or your property. In Denver, I'm a firm believer that if you do your due diligence and you do your homework, you can put yourself, whether again you are renting or buying, in an area where you're going to feel safe, secure, and your property will be as well. And I know somebody's going to watch that part and they're going to be like, Jimmy, I live in a nice neighborhood and I had my Honda Civic stolen. I mean, I had a Honda Civic stolen in the Bronx. There's not much I can do about that one. And number 9, I told you these next two would kind of tie into each other. And this is a big deal here in Denver. And that is, what is the homeless situation like in Denver? And I won't hide from it. We saw a dramatic increase. We've seen the homeless situation here in Denver increase. People will tell you it was as of the legalization of marijuana, excuse me, shouldn't say weed, the legalization of marijuana. And I wouldn't deny that that was clearly a moment when the homeless count really started to increase, but we started to see that creep in earlier than that. 2010, 2011, as our population here grew, so did the homeless situation. Obviously during COVID, just as we saw in some other cities, the homeless situation just blew up, just became a significant issue. And for a while there were parts of the city that it would genuinely break your heart to drive through, filled with tents and trash, just a bad scenario. And we have not corrected all of that. And I would say, and I've mentioned this in other videos, the plan the city has had, it's really taken a long time for them to get a hold of what they were doing to support that community, help that community, give the homeless community resources, but also, let's just be real, not allow them to do whatever they wanted. Because we saw, especially during the height of COVID, there were parks in the middle of Denver, beautiful areas that people used to spend time in that were just filled with tents. So we went from one extreme to the other. Now the city is taking steps. Do they have the best resources in place? No. Would not try to say that they do. Is there a lot of work to be done? Absolutely there are. I talk to clients and friends all the time who live in certain areas of town, including areas that you would not look at and go, oh my gosh, I hope the homeless situation here isn't that bad. And they have the occasional situation where homeless people are coming into the lobbies or just trespassing in certain areas. And this is always a balance, obviously, where we're not heartless. We want to help people, but at the same time, your security, your safety are important as well. So in my long-winded homeless spiel here, what I would tell you is that Denver got to a really bad place, in my opinion, and fact, with our homeless population and situation. It is gradually improving, but we have a lot of work to do. And the fact is, as affordability issues continue to be on the rise in Denver, we've talked about it, Denver is not the most affordable place to live. That homeless situation is only going to get worse if the city is not able to do more to support them. And in what is clearly the worst segue of all time, we're going to go from homeless people to outdoor activities. I just feel my subscriptions going down. But question number 10 is, what are the best outdoor activities to do in Denver and in Colorado? I feel like I should just pause right now, look at my list, and question myself for how I did not catch that 9 ran into 10 like that. Regardless, so obviously, if we're talking winter, you're going to be going up to the mountains and you're going to be skiing or snowboarding if that is your thing. Or if you're like me, you're going to tell yourself every winter that you're going to go up and you're going to learn how to ski and how to snowboard. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Colorado. Some of the most world-renowned ski resorts, some of the places that people fly all over the place, they come here to see, are within driving distance for us. Summertime, Denver has a lot of great golf courses to hit up. We are big into our outdoor sports at parks. You're going to see people playing volleyball and drink in hand kickball all the time. And also some great news. I've decided that I'm going to become a senior citizen early. I'm just kidding. We play a lot of pickleball here, and it's a recent thing, but it doesn't seem like you can go to a park on any sunny day. We get a lot of sun here, and people are out just pickleballing like champions. And I got to tell you, I still suck at pickleball. I can't even say it. How can I be good at a sport when I can't even say the word? And my favorite part of it is having, a couple retirees come out on their day after they have a coffee and just whoop my butt at some pickleball. But it's certainly. And obviously it's Colorado. It's summertime. People, we're big hikers. We are big mountain climbers, and we're big mountain bikers. I got into mountain biking a few years ago. One of my favorite things to do now. There are trails everywhere, great runs, great places to go, and a lot of good groups for all of these things. So if you're looking for hiking buddies, mountain bike buddies, pickleball buddies, easy to find. And at the end of the day, I am sure there are more than just those 10 most common questions that people ask before moving to Denver, Colorado. So if you want to address number 11, that's the perfect opportunity to give me a call. So the number and email popping up on your screen, know that I'm always a person, answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails, there when and if you need me. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. That was the 10 most common questions people ask before moving to Denver, Colorado. Until I see you next time,